Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of Grinders Live. I, of course, am Dan Bach, your host here for the day. And, you know, I looked at the All-Star break and thought this would be a nice, relaxing time, kind of get away from daily fantasy. Nothing big ever happens during the All-Star break. And then, boom, we talk about some groundbreaking news that just took place last night over there between Draft Street and DraftKings, and I am really excited to bring on our two guests today. We've got the CEO of DraftKings, Jason Robbins, and the Chief Product Director, I believe, something along those lines over there at Draft Street. You know him better as Markness, Mark Nuremberg. And fellas, thanks so much for spending some time with me this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to be here.
Now, a lot of questions people want to have answered, so we're going to try and get through them the best we can today. And this took a lot of us by surprise, and the one thing that we know is these acquisitions, these mergers, have to start somewhere. So how did this come about? And basically the bottom line, Jason, who made the first phone call here between Draft Street and DraftKings?
This came about relatively quickly for us, too. I've definitely thought about something like this before. I've always looked at Draft Street and felt like if we were ever to join up with anyone, that they would make the most sense, just given the relative strengths and weaknesses of the companies were so complementary with each other. But beyond just sort of daydreaming, hadn't thought about it a ton. And we got the first call from the IAC guys in Draft Street, and that was only a few weeks ago, and it just went really quickly from there. I think it was pretty apparent after the initial discussions, and especially after we got to know each other a little bit and spent some time together, that there was just a great opportunity working together. And we really felt like, while individually we could be good companies, together we could be great and provide just a best-in-class experience across all dimensions.
Now, obviously, we don't have the specs on the financials of the deal, and that's fine. But, we know it's a significant amount of money. And no doubt, the liquidity from this deal is going to increase tremendously over on DraftKings. But you also have to imagine there's probably a fair amount of player overlap from what Draft Street had to what DraftKings already had. So was there any hesitation to kind of pull the trigger? I mean, this is a massive deal. This isn't something that, making an advertising buy on, one night on ESPN. This is a groundbreaking deal. So, how much thought was put into it? And, was there ever any sort of discussions about, is this a better route, or should we spend that money on new customer acquisition?
So it was actually, we did the research on that beforehand, and the overlap was surprisingly low. I thought it was going to be higher than it was. About 83% of Draft Street's customers had never used DraftKings before for real money games, and that was just a much higher number, honestly, than I thought it would be. A lot of the big players, obviously, and a lot of the grinders community play across both sites, but Draft Street's been around for years and had assembled a list of players that just was quite substantial, and they had gotten from a variety of different marketing channels, and it just didn't overlap as much as I thought with ours. But really, that was almost a bonus more than anything. This was a long-term play for us. This was something where we felt like, in the end, what will create the biggest and best site will certainly be liquidity, but it will also be the best customer experience. And after we got to know the team a little bit at Draft Street, and obviously looking at it from a consumer perspective, having played on their site and seen what they do and how much better they are at certain things than others in the industry, and then looking at what we did and seeing what we felt like we could bring to the table and the synergies that would be created, to quote Roto Kevin, that if we combine forces, we just felt like that was really the end answer, that we would have a superior product and superior customer experience in the long run. And this wasn't a short-term play. Obviously, it's expensive to do any deal, but especially, two big companies getting together. But we were capitalized to do it. We have a great investor base that saw the same vision we did and understood the synergies between the two companies. And that was the easy part. I think the exciting and challenging part is now all the things that we're going to be doing together from here on out.
Was there ever a thought of buying Draft Street and running it separately and just kind of upgrading maybe some of the tech side of the sites that were clearly inferior to DraftKings and a lot of the other industries? And why didn't you go that route instead of just kind of consolidating?
If I knew you were going to ask me that, I wouldn't have wasted my Roto Kevin quote on the previous questions. I mean, I think he nailed it, and several others had similar comments on the forums. We talked about it briefly, but just there was too much power to be gained by having guys like Mark just focus all their attention on bringing the best of both worlds together. And he could speak more, I think, to some of the ideas we tossed around, and I know you'll have some questions for him on that. But
Sure.
it distracts more than necessary to try to be focusing on two separate products. It splits the liquidity and user base. There's an operational cost to it. And if we felt like the end of the day, if we felt like we couldn't serve everyone on one platform, we would have done it. But we feel like with the team over there and what they're good at, we can bring the best of both worlds together into one place. And it's our goal to offer a variety of different types of games. And I know early on, obviously, liquidity is of importance, but as the industry grows, there's no reason you can't have expert games with different caps. There's no reason you can't have deep rosters games with more roster spots. And those are just the things that have to stay different in the short term. Obviously, things like bringing in the sports that they've launched, snakes, pick'ems, those are all things that we have the guys now who knew how to do it, who created it, who, by the way, also learned a lot during that and probably would do some things differently, given the opportunity to start over again, and we're going to be able to bring that all to one place.
Well, I want to give you guys a ton of credit. It was tremendously easy to move your money from Draft Street to DraftKings. I know there's been different takeovers in the past, and it's been a nightmare, trying to get your money from one site to somewhere else. It literally takes a minute, and the fact that you guys attached bonuses to it was a tremendous plus, both to people who already have accounts on DraftKings and those who don't. So I want to give you guys a lot of credit for that. Now, the key, of course, is going to obviously try and get those guys who are playing on Draft Street to keep playing on DraftKings. Now, maybe, Mark, you can answer this a little bit better because you're so familiar with the Draft Street audience. What do you think is important to those guys who were playing on Draft Street coming over to DraftKings?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about salaries and rosters and scoring. Nothing's going to change drastically right away, or even necessarily in the long run. We've been focused for this past week on just the conversion process, which
Sure.
did go pretty smoothly. Both tech teams worked pretty well together on that. We're very happy about that. But we're going to just kind of come together, brainstorm. Certainly being able to be more accurate with the salaries can't hurt. It doesn't mean we would go all the way, but we're just going to combine all of our thoughts and just try to come up with the best product possible.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, it's got to be a tricky spot for you. I mean, you've got two relatively different games here between what Draft Street offered and what DraftKings has right now. And obviously, you want to convert a lot of these users, but you don't want to alienate some of the guys who enjoy the product that you have today. I mean, how hard of a decision is it going to be to say, okay, we're going to make this, I don't want to say concession, but we're going to do this, but we're not going to do that. I mean, I have to imagine these are going to be some really tough choices in terms of whether it's expanding rosters or tightening salary caps and different aspects of Draft Street that their users really, really liked.
So I mean that's a great question. I think two comments I'd say, or 2 points I'd make on that. One, I think that anyone who expects to see something identical to Draft Street or expects it to be exactly the way it is today on DraftKings is wrong, and that would be true even if we didn't do this deal. We're always looking to evolve the product. I think that the most important thing is we just added Mark and an incredibly talented team over there. That he alluded to accuracy of salaries. How can having an algorithm that predicts performance more accurately than what we do possibly be a bad thing? How that gets used, well, that's what the product teams need to get together and figure out. And the focus is always going to be on trying to put the best thing out there. But I feel like we've been hamstrung on things like salaries, not in the sense that we wanted to make them hard or anything like that, but we've never been able to do everything we wanted to do there. And that goes for several other aspects of the product. And now really what's hamstrung us is just not having the resources that could do it as well as the Draft Street guys could. And Now that we have that, it's all about creating something great and having two teams that bring two really great skill sets to the table come together. And then, figuring out how to best have that come out is going to be a great challenge, but we're in a much better position to do it today than we were a week ago. And then the second point I make, and this is something I alluded to earlier, is long-term, because there are going to be things like roster makeup or salaries that just you have to pick a certain setup. It can be some sort of blend of the best of both worlds, but you're never going to be able to please everyone. Some people are going to want really tough caps. Some are going to want really easy caps. I think in the long run, once there's enough liquidity in the industry, you just need to have games of all varieties, and then the people who want a certain type of game will have it, and the people who want another type of game will have it, and everyone will be happy.
Hey, Mark, do me a favor. Fight for the non-kicker, please.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that.
I had to throw that out there. I had to put that out there.
That's actually the number one thing I've gotten people messaging me about is, is Mark talked you into getting rid of the kicker yet? Literally, that's what everyone cares about.
I'll try.
Well, it's not that far down the road. I mean, NFL season, college season, it's going to be really interesting to see. I don't expect, obviously any changes in the roster makeup for MLB. That really wouldn't make sense at this point in time. Maybe, obviously, fixing some of the salary cap issues, not issues, but algorithms a tad bit, I think, are more in play. But, what's a timetable for seeing some of these transitions? I mean, let's throw one out there. I've had a lot of people knocking on my door, and they might not be the biggest audience, but I'll say this much: these soccer guys are ultra passionate about this whole daily fantasy emergence that we've seen on Draft Street from the World Cup. I mean, have you guys prioritized that yet? I mean, is this something that you're in the process of doing? Because it seems, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not big into it, but there are a lot of passionate people behind soccer, and I know Draft Street was planning to do, EPL or Champions League. Is that something that the conversations are ongoing right now about?
Mark, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're actually going to be meeting soon. Like I said, we've been focusing on just the transferring of users over to DraftKings so far. For us, it didn't take too long to get that set up, but it might be, different tech team, different system. We're gonna be prioritizing everything soon. I'm not sure where that'll fall into play, but I know the DraftKings guys have expressed heavy interest in getting soccer up sooner than later.
And what about the pick-up games and the snake drafts? I mean, those are two things that were very unique. Your biggest competitor in the market now, FanDuel, doesn't have them. I have to think that those two would be near the top of the list. And I hate to put timetables on stuff, but do you think it's even possible to have something like that ready by NFL season?
It depends what the priorities are. That might be pretty soon. I wouldn't want to make any promises, but it's definitely a priority.
All right.
Yeah, I think what I can say for sure is we will do all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mark's point is, literally the last week, and it was so fast, and I really appreciate your nice comments on the transfer wizard. We tried to make it super simple and wanted everyone's attention since that was the most important thing. Mark was, traveling all week, working with the tech teams in both locations, and really making sure that we nailed that. And now we have some time to step back. I actually just had a call with Mark about an hour ago, and soccer was on the list we talked about. So, we're starting to talk about it, and in the next few weeks, we're going to go meet together as a team and prioritize what we think the next set of features and product enhancements we want to work on is. I know we can't do all of those things by football. It'd be great to be able to do one of them. And what I can say is in the long term, you will see all of them.
Talking with Jason Robbins and Mark Nirenberg, of course, of Draft Street. Mark and Jason, the CEO of DraftKings. The huge news, the merger just taking place last night. And one more aspect of the the business side of daily fantasy I want to touch up on is kind of consolidation here, Jason. Between you and probably FanDuel, an estimate, maybe 90 to 95% of daily fantasy users on those two sites. I mean, what does this consolidation mean for the player? I mean, obviously, you know, we lost one of the options of a site that a lot of people like to play on, but give the viewers and the listeners here, you know, the benefits of kind of what's happening in the industry with, you know, it seems like two sites far ahead of everybody else right now.
Well, first, I think that, you know, while certainly there are two sites that have substantially more liquidity, there are a lot of other sites out there that have unique product features, and this is an opportunity for some of them to maybe try to figure out ways to differentiate themselves. And my belief is that as long as there as long as there's a willingness to be innovative, whether you're big, small, medium size, you will find an audience. So I always expect that there will be lots of different options out there. As far as, you know, the two, FanDuel and us, that have the most liquidity, I can't really speak for them, but speaking on our end, we view this as something that should make everything better for the players. We think that while certainly people had loyalty to DraftStreet and DraftKings, the things that they complained to us nonstop about on each end were exactly the things that the opposite side did better. And now we feel like we can create something that will make everyone happy. It won't happen overnight, but this gives us more resources and gives us a team that's very complementary, and those things together should allow us to do more and more for the players than we've ever done before.
Now, Mark, you've been around daily fantasy about as long as anybody that I know of. You've seen sites come and sites go. Now, I want to get this from your perspective here. How do you think DraftKings and Jason has been able to become such a big player in this industry in such a short amount of time? Because, you know, others have tried, very few have succeeded, and you know, clearly, you know, not just based on this acquisition. I mean, we've seen the meteoric rise of DraftKings. Why do you think they've been able to do that, and others haven't?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear when they first came on that they were really aggressive with the prize pools, and, you know, they were here to stay from day one. They even had a pretty decent product coming out of the gate, although it's gotten a lot better since. And we were kind of looking at each other in the office like, you know, how is this possibly going to work? But it started to become clear that they were here, they had good funding, and that allows for that aggressive strategy. But really it was the constant improvements of the product, and just kind of like you could tell the people in charge were in touch with the user base, and that was something that we hadn't competed against at that point, you know. When we came on, we were doing all the new things. We were the fantasy guys. You know, some of the bigger sites were kind of not nearly on that level. And I think, you know, those two things combined kind of catapulted them to where they are now, and where we are now, I guess.
Now, Mark, how hard is it, though, for someone like yourself? You've put in 4 years of, you know, effort, hours and hours on end, and all of a sudden, kind of at a blink of an eye, it's gone. No more DraftStreet. I mean, what was your feeling? I mean, do you look back at, and are you a little bit sad to see it go from that perspective, just based on all the effort and time you put in on it?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's tough to see it go. But at the same time, I'm excited about the situation that we're in here. And I don't know, it's been interesting reflecting back over the past week or so. But, you know, with one door closing, another door opens, and we'll see what happens.
What would you say, Mark, was your crowning moment, your proudest moment as somebody in the daily fantasy industry at DraftStreet?
I don't, honestly, maybe just this past week, because, I mean, it's just such a crazy ride the whole time. But not with anything I did this past week. I'm saying, just looking back, I felt the most proud, seeing everybody really appreciating everything that we've done here over the past, you know, almost 5 years at this point. And it's just, you know, it's rewarding to know that people enjoyed and appreciate all the hard work. So I guess I've been feeling proud recently about that.
Well, I'm definitely one of those people, and you should be. You guys did a tremendous job moving this industry forward. Now, obviously, I got to talk about the other end of the spectrum. If there's one thing you look back at your time at DraftStreet and you say, wish we could have done that a little bit differently. What do you think it is?
There's a few things maybe where if I knew what I know now, I might have done differently, but I don't have any regrets. I'm happy to be where I am today, and I'm just looking forward.
What is your role now exactly with DraftKings? Are you staying in New York and working remotely from there, moving to Boston? What's the plan for you?
Yeah, we're going to keep the New York office open here. I'll be staying here at least for now, and I'll be just joining the product team, and I'm excited to work with a lot of these talented guys. I've been able to meet and talk to a few, and I'm excited to make a trip up to Boston soon and meet the rest of the team up there. But definitely something on the product team.
Now, Jason, this kind of purchase, there's a lot of things that people don't even think about. First thing I want to ask you about is Skill Zone. Was that part of this deal? Because I know that this is something that I think was involved. Draft Street and IAC was involved with. Was that part of the deal? And if so, what's the plans for that?
So it was not actually part of the deal. We felt like Draft Street was between the team and everything else really the right place for us to focus, and after talking with the Draft Street team, it seemed like they felt that it made more sense for us to leave Skill Zone behind as well, and they had been closer to it, so we ended up leaving that one with IAC.
Also, I think that Draft Street, one of the best partnerships they ever came into was working with Matthew Berry of ESPN and having him promote their product via Twitter, Facebook, and other kind of social media platforms, putting his face on the site. Is that an agreement that was, still in existence and going to carry over? Have you thought about that? Have you talked about it? Because I really felt that, having him on the side of a daily fantasy site was a great asset for Draft Street, and I was curious to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, obviously, Matthew Berry is the godfather of fantasy content. He's the man, and they have benefited, I'm sure, tremendously from having that relationship over the course of the last couple years. Given ESPN's deeper involvement from an advertising perspective, that relationship's changed, but Draft Street's always maintained a lot of involvement with Matthew, and we're looking forward to doing the same now. We have some things that we've been working on as we transition that will go up with Matthew on some websites that he runs, and also we're looking for other ways to partner with him now that ESPN's getting more deeply involved in the industry as well.
Should be tremendous to see. Looking forward to it. Okay, kind of final thoughts here on something that also came out yesterday, Jason. The launch of DKTV. Merging with the one of the three biggest sites out there wasn't big enough. You had to throw this out there on top of it. Everybody's not sure exactly what DKTV is. Can you explain it to them?
I don't even think we're sure yet. But it started with us starting to figure that one area we hadn't focused on enough was having tutorial videos and how to use the site. When we launch new features, videos on how to use the features, and we traditionally just like tweeted out or posted on your forums a bunch of screenshots and stuff, and it wasn't getting to everybody, and B, it was just not as powerful as video content. So we decided that we just needed a repository to house those things, and then as this Draft Street DraftKings combination came together, we also figured it would be a great place for us to post messages for people about what's going on there. And I think just over time, anything that we need to communicate that can be done via video can be done there, and how it evolves we'll have to see. I know there's some comments, questions in the forums. We're not trying to, there's a lot of content that's better served on third-party sites that would be considered a little bit too close to the line for us to be offering. So our goal is not that. Our goal is to teach people how to play better, introduce new features to them, teach them general strategies, communicate things that are happening like this Draft Street DraftKings combination, and in general just make everyone feel more like there's a there's a face and a little bit more of a social side behind what we're doing.
I tweeted this out the other day. Through 3.5 months, you guys have given away 23 seats. to the Atlantis final, and we're like a month, maybe month and a half away, and you have 27 left to give away. Are you hoarding these things or what?
You know, we've been posting them at the level of demand, and I think, you know, early on it was strong, and as the dead of summer has hit, it hasn't come. Ultimately, we're going to have to run them all. So, you know, now that we have a lot more liquidity, we should be able to do more. So I wish that we, in some ways, had even left more, because, you know, we have so much more volume that I expect in the next month or so. But we also see that as these events get closer, people get more excited about them, and that picks up. If they end up overlaying, they end up overlaying. But we didn't want to look back and say that we, you know, ran too many in the, you know, most quiet months of summer and overlaid more than we needed to. And they all still overlay a little bit generally when we run them. But we didn't want to look back and say that, only to see a lot more demand at the end. And if it ends up that we have a lot of overlay on them in the end, we were probably going to get that anyway, trying to force them into the summer. So. We know there'll be 50. It'll be interesting to see how they run out.
I can't wait. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I know you're super busy with everything going on between this merger, but for you to kind of give us some accessibility and some time here on Roto Grinders, it always means the world to us, our members, our viewers, and thanks again for dropping in with us here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for checking us out. Grinders Live will be back tomorrow night, 8 Eastern. Myself and STL Cardinals talking about the British Open, the Open Championship. They got a nice tournament over on DraftKings over there for you to check out as well. So we'll help you build some lineups during this dead part of the All-Star break. Thanks again to Jason and Mark, and talk to you again. Bye.